All right, let's try to do this again. So, part of having PTSD is memory problems. So, I did this great video on PTSD and got it ready to, upload to YouTube and all that stuff. But I forgot to push the record button. Yeah, okay, it's recording. Definitely recording. All right, so let's get into this. PTSD. There are a lot of misconceptions out there about PTSD, what it is, how it affects different people. It's really hard to explain in some ways. What PTSD is in and of itself is simple. So let's take a look at these really fancy slides I put together. Yeah, technology is obviously my friend. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that's caused by an extremely stressful or terrifying event. Okay. You can be part of it. You can witness it. There's a variety of things that can happen to cause PTSD symptoms in a person. It's really, really tough to try and get any kind of measure on how these things are going to affect each person individually. There's quite a bit of difference and variation from person to person and from event to event. Some people react very poorly to some things. Some people are fine. Sometimes you can experience the same event 100 times and not have it bother you until it does. So when it comes to diagnosing PTSD, when it comes to how to treat and deal with PTSD, it varies so much from individual to individual. So that's why we're here. We're going to talk about some of the different things that happen to different people and what you can do to help. And let us begin. So the major symptoms: intrusive memories, avoidance, and by avoidance, that's you're doing whatever you can to avoid the memories and avoid thoughts of the event, not actually the avoidance part of coping. That's not what we're talking about with that piece. Negative changes in thinking and mood, and changes in physical and emotional reaction. So most doctors, when they're diagnosing somebody with PTSD, these are the four key things that they're looking at. All right. So intrusive memories, unwanted distressful memories of the traumatic event that come back over and over again. Now, that is something that it's really hard to predict, because those memories may come back from one thing or the other. But they really, they can be life altering for a lot of us, because sometimes those memories will trigger a minor reaction and sometimes a major reaction. It's not something that can be predicted for most of us. So reliving the traumatic events as it were happening over and over again. So flashbacks. Flashbacks, I think, are very misunderstood by a lot of folks, because when we think about flashbacks, what we're thinking about is, that movie replay in your head. So you're seeing everything blow by blow, step by step, word for word. And that's not often the case, in fact. Very rarely is for most of us. So the flashbacks can be just a snippet of the event and what happened. And it might be minor, it might be severe. And it's simply a matter of not knowing exactly what it's going to be when it happens. Excuse me. So upsetting dreams and nightmares about the traumatic event. So that one gets me a lot, is the nightmares. I have them every night. And with the things that I've seen and that have happened to me and happened around me, you would think that my nightmares would be about some really horrifying things. But I'll tell you from a personal experience, the thing that triggers my PTSD the most, the thing I have more nightmares about than anything, isn't bodies I've recovered as a search and rescue diver. It's not about things that happened as actual direct action in war. It's those are the things that we would expect, right? but with me, what it is on one tour I was in Iraq, and a local family brought up a child, and in Iraq they use goat milk for a lot of things, and they boil it. And so this was a kid, 4, maybe 6, somewhere in that range, and he had grabbed a pot and covered himself in boiling goat milk, and he had 3rd-degree burns all over his body, giant blisters. I mean, blisters that big-ish on just this very, very small child. I had nothing to do with it. Nobody that I was in command of had anything to do with that. It wasn't our fault. And yet I can see that kid's face so clearly, and I can see those burns so clearly. I mean, for me, I can't remember what my wife's face looks like if I leave the room. And she and I have been married almost 3 decades. But I can clearly see this kid's face. Right now, I can see his face in my head. And so the nightmares that we have are not necessarily what you would think they would be. Severe emotional distress and physical reactions to something that reminds you of the traumatic event. Okay. So again, we don't know what's going to cause a reaction and to what level that reaction is going to be. So the memories that cause the emotional distress and the physical reactions can be really innocuous, and it can be a new thing. So you may have, for soldiers, we talk about gunfire and explosions. Okay, those are things that usually trigger memories of traumatic events for us. But you might be able to live through those 100 times and not have anything bother you, and then all of a sudden it happens, and boom, just like that, it triggers a memory, triggers that emotional and that physical reaction. And I tell you, PTSD can be so frustrating to deal with because you never know what it's going to do, what it's going to be. I mean, you can't predict your own behavior, let alone somebody else's, when it comes to this. So avoidance. So that's trying not to think about the traumatic event. We can either try and repress it ourselves, or we can have our brains actually suppress these memories and these triggers that cause the symptoms of PTSD. Staying away from places and activities or people that remind you of the traumatic event. Now, so in the military, that's not a big one, because once we're out of that environment, it's primarily just other soldiers that we're seeing that remind us of the event. But in the civilian world, if you're a cop or a firefighter or a search and rescue diver like I am, you can see the families of the people that are related to these traumatic events. I mean, I pulled a kid out of the water a year and a half ago, and I see his family all the time. So my concern is always with them, am I going to be a trigger for their post-traumatic stress? Because they all certainly have it. I mean, this was a terrible incident, but they don't conjure up any negative emotions in me when I see them, but it's really hard to know if, they may be fine now, they may be fine a year from now, 10 years from now, they may not be fine. It's challenging. It really is. Changes in thinking and mood. So this happens to us a lot. And most of us who are having these issues, it all just, it combines and it snowballs. So you'll have the bad memories and you'll have a reaction, or you may yell at your wife or your kids. And then you start having these negative thoughts. And then you roll into the next one, which is those ongoing negative emotions, the fear, the blame, the guilt, the anger, the shame. I mean, you talk about survivor's guilt, where you feel guilty that you survived, somebody else didn't. You blame yourself for not saving them or not doing something. You can have fear of, there's an irrational fear that can build up in us. And so you have the negative thoughts, and then you start rolling into negative emotions, and then pain. Pain is a good one. When it comes to understanding how somebody's going to react, the more pain we're in, the more the rest of these things really start to build and push forward and crush us down. So that's one of the ways that sometimes these things are worse than others, is the first 100 times you experience something, you may not be in physical pain, but once you are in pain, the exact same thing can happen. And then you start to spiral out of control when it comes to your PTSD symptoms. So memory problems, including not remembering important aspects of the traumatic event. Again, this can be something that our brain does as a defense mechanism. If we just close down psychologically ourselves, sometimes it's something that we actively try and do. We're really pushing hard to suppress and repress those memories so that they're not coming back up. And that's where that avoidant behavior comes in, where you're avoiding the tragedy and you're avoiding anything that's a memory that brings it up. So that's kind of hard to judge too, because everybody's got different abilities when it comes to that. Some of us we can just push those memories down, push them aside, not think about it. I have a memory. I mean, I can't remember why I got up from the kitchen and went to the living room or to the bedroom. I mean, I'll be walking around wondering what I'm doing and why I'm there. I can also tell you, I could draw out the face of a girl I dated 30 years ago and tell you exactly what her perfume smells like. Okay. So our memories are crazy, weird things. We don't know how they're going to work. We don't know why we remember certain things and don't remember other things. And the PTSD really makes that so much worse. Not being interested in activities you once enjoyed. That's something to watch for. The activities don't actually have to remind you of the traumatic event. It's just a lack of interest in being part of the world, being part of things that are going on. Things that you once enjoyed absolutely can just stop being of interest to you. So watch for that in people. If they're having PTSD symptoms, that's a fairly easy one to be able to pull out from a friend and family position. Having a hard time feeling positive emotions. Oh boy. So negative emotions, things that make most of us feel bad and sad and, all those sorts of things. Yeah. Okay. Those are big parts of depression and big parts of mood disorders and big parts of mood disorders associated with PTSD. We don't often think about the lack of positive emotions. And that's why we stop doing activities we once enjoyed. We're not getting that positive emotion, that positive feeling, that joy from doing an activity. That's one of the things that lack of positive emotions, that leads to the dangerous behavior in a lot of cases. So if you're driving too fast, you're taking excessive risks, you're spending money irrationally. I mean, all of these sorts of things can be that you're trying to chase and find something, anything that gives you a positive emotion. And it's so frustrating and so difficult for our friends and family to deal with us because they start to take that personally. It's like, okay, well, why, I'm a good wife, I'm a good mother, we have a nice house, the house is clean, we don't need money, those sorts of things. So why is he or she so unhappy? Why aren't you finding joy? Why aren't you smiling? People start to internalize that as they associate with us as we're dealing with PTSD. And then feeling emotionally numb. I have times where I don't feel anything, not good, not bad. And I can usually pick the person out of a room that is going through that same thing. body language, the way they look, the lack of blinking. If somebody's been staring for 5 minutes and not blinking and staying away from everybody else, they're probably feeling emotionally numb for some reason. And a lot of the people I hang out with are veterans and first responders, so I actually see that kind of thing a lot. Physical changes and emotional reactions. Now, these are the things that kind of make us all laugh, because you shouldn't laugh at somebody's mental health crisis and you shouldn't laugh at their struggle. But veterans and first responders, we have a fairly dark sense of humor. I mean, that's just who and what we are. So when somebody gets startled or jumps because they're easily startled or frightened, we'll usually laugh and have some good-natured fun and ravine about it. And you shouldn't, but I think we all do it to some extent. If you see those physical reactions to somebody, you make fun of them. The emotional reactions, on the other hand, that's not something that most of us will make fun of. It's that's really hard because most of us mask our emotions fairly well. I've been told I have the world's best resting bitch face. Okay, sure, I get that. So it's hard to read my emotions for most people. So always being on guard from danger. You'll notice that a lot of us, when we go into an unfamiliar environment, will sit with our backs against the wall where we have a good view of the entire room, the whole situation. And a lot of us will focus on the doors and windows. And we kind of avoid the people that we're interacting with because we're watching. Sometimes that will go away to an extent over time, but not always, not necessarily. Self-destructive behaviors. I mean, think about the veterans and first responders that you know that are high-functioning alcoholics. There's a lot of us out there because the drinking can really numb some of those emotions. When you're going into the highs and lows, and the drinking can help level that out. Certainly not something any of us should be doing when we have PTSD, but it is something that a lot of us use to cope. Trouble sleeping. So nightmares, other things like that, really can cause a lot of sleep disturbances. And those sleep disturbances make everything else worse. If you're not sleeping, it doesn't matter what else you're doing. It's a struggle. It's a fight. It's just something that you're pounding through day after day, trying to deal with all this stuff. But that lack of sleep, really, it just makes everything so much worse. So getting a good night's sleep is important. Also, oversleeping. Some people they won't actually be sleeping, but they'll stay in bed for long periods of time. So watch for that. Make sure that you're keeping an eye out. If somebody's not sleeping or they have erratic sleep patterns, that may be a sign that they're having a real difficult time. Trouble concentrating, well, yeah. A lot of us will kind of bat around from one thing to the other, back and forth, back and forth. And it's kind of like dealing with, ferrets who got into somebody's crack stash, just bouncing around and looking at everything, touching everything. And, it's crazy what some of those behaviors can do. And sometimes it's as simple as, reading the same chapter of a book over and over and over again. So all of these symptoms are definitely on a progressing scale. Irritability and angry outbursts or aggressive behavior. Yep. Okay. Get that one. I had a friend who I've known for well over a decade and a half, and she said that with some of the things that have happened to me over the last year and a half, I've been terrifying. Okay. That's not something I see in myself or would have seen or would have noticed. However, since she brought it up, I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. I get that. it's a misread of that behavior, and it's a misread of the emotional state. But that doesn't matter from where she's coming from, right? Because it's the same thing for us, and it's the same thing for you, both sides. So our PTSD, our symptoms, our lack of emotional response, our feelings of depression, all of those other sorts of things, it's not a reflection on you and what you're doing and how you're helping us or how you're not helping us. It is a reflection of what's going on with us internally. And your actions and reactions to our behavior is also something that we have to understand and we have to deal with, because we can't control how you feel based on our actions, nor is that something anybody should really be spending a lot of time focusing on. You feel how you feel based on your interactions with us, and we feel how we feel because of PTSD. And so we have to be able to come together and figure out how we're going to act and interact and live together when one of us or both of us is struggling with this. So let's roll into the physical reactions. So sweating, rapid breathing, fast heartbeat, and shaking. Shaking is, yeah, right there. I'll shake from time to time, and it's not something that I can control. I don't even notice it most of the time, but when it does happen, it can become very noticeable. The shaking can be very bad. Rapid breathing, fast heart rate. You'll see some of that. People pouring sweat. That happens too. So variety of things like that you can see. Those physical reactions often are some of your better indicators if somebody's having a problem with the environment. Typically, it can happen when you're in a comfortable place like at home, but usually these things, the sweating, rapid breathing, heart rate, shaking, that's because you're in an uncomfortable environment that you're not used to. All right. So if you know somebody who is struggling from suicidal thoughts or PTSD, reach out to a medical or mental health professional as fast as possible. Call or text 988. That is the National Suicide Crisis Line. They're there to help. If you think somebody is suicidal because of their PTSD, or homicidal for that matter, reach out. Talk to them about it as well. Don't ever be afraid to talk to somebody and ask them if they're feeling suicidal, if they're feeling depressed. You're not going to give them the idea to kill themselves, but you caring, you reaching out may be enough to stop them from doing it. So don't be afraid to ask them the questions. Don't be afraid to reach out and get them help. It's so important that we engage with people who are struggling with PTSD and struggling with suicide. I've lost 2 people to suicide in the last year. I don't want to do another one. So you have to, if you're living with somebody who has PTSD, you have to watch for those symptoms, and you have to reach out and help them if you think that they're going to be suicidal. And I'm going to leave everybody with this. As a nation, we need to pull our collective heads out of our asses when it comes to discussing and talking about suicide. You'll see it on YouTube. A lot of channels will bleep out the word suicide, or they'll scramble it in their descriptions, because apparently the algorithm will push down those videos and you won't get as many views. No, just no. Don't be afraid to say the word suicide. Don't be afraid to talk to people about their PTSD or other mental health problems. Ignoring it, suppressing it, and pushing it away only makes it worse. So keep an eye on your friends and family and your loved ones. If you have PTSD, you can reach out to us. There's tons of other organizations out there that work with veterans and first responders with PTSD, family members. There's lots of support groups and things like that out there for you guys as well. So be safe, take care of each other. We'll see you in the next video.